All right, I'm going to be working with Atlas again today, and we're going to be doing some more desensitizing at the trot and working on the lunge at the trot. He's pretty solid, just working at the walk and make sure that's good before you move on to the trot. And he's got the cues down. He can stop, he can yield his hindquarters and turn and face you, because you got to make sure you have a good stop before you start going any faster than the walk. But here I'm just sending him out. He's a little bit close, so I was trying to kind of push him out a little bit. He does a nice turn right here. That looks great, really great. He's really soft. He has this nice bend. He's stepping underneath himself with that inside hind, following that rope around. He gets a little stuck here. I'm just going to show him. He thinks he kind of wants to target my right hand, so I think that's why he's a little confused. And I'm just going to show him very quietly where I want him to go. Nothing crazy. I'm not going to punish him or chase him or anything like that. He's just figuring it out. But he looked really good. He's really, really light off the rope. Here I'm just going to back up, and he follows and comes right in. That looks really, really good. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a bit of desensitizing. Just going to kind of speed that up a little bit. So I tossed the rope on his back. He didn't have a reaction to that. He stayed relaxed. So I went ahead and clicked him while the rope was on him and then fed him his treat. So I'm just going to ask him to back up again. And there we go. I'm just going to kind of put some energy upwards so it's not necessarily directed at him, so I don't scare him, and just ask him to back up. And as soon as he takes a step back, I'm just going to stop asking and putting that energy up with my hands. So I'm going to send him back out, and then I just kind of push with both my hands toward his belly to kind of ask him to make a bit bigger circle around me so he's not quite so close. So here I'm going to ask him to trot with just a little swing of the end of my rope, and that looked really, really good. So he took a few strides at the trot, and I went ahead and clicked and then fed him for going into the trot. So you might have to break it down a bit more and just do that first stride into the trot or about to get into the trot. It kind of depends on how sticky your horse is and how good your round pen work is as well. So that was really good. Again, he did about 2 strides, and then I went ahead and clicked him, and then I'm going to feed him for going forward. So that looked really, really nice. So make sure your round pen work looks good. So he's going forward off your voice cue, and then you can put it together with the halter and lead rope and put it all together that way. So there's different ways to do the lunging. You can use, like here, I'm kind of using a mix of negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement. There he goes right into it. Really, really nice there. So I click him again. That was quite good. He's not horribly worried. Like, he doesn't seem like he's, trying to run off or trying to avoid the rope. It's just a cue for him. I'm not going to spank him with the end of the rope or anything like that. So I'm trying to mix them in the most unadverse way I can. So here I'm just kind of swinging it. And then he kind of thought about it. There we go. He gets into it and swing it again once he breaks back to the walk. Keep swinging here. So I'm not going to increase there. I'm just going to kind of just annoy him with that swinging rope. And as soon as he moves forward, I am going to release and stop doing that. So especially for him, he doesn't do great with the increasing of the pressure. He gets too worried about it. And a lot of horses will be like that too. So just be careful with that. That was nice. I'm going to click him there, and I've just picked up on the inside of the lead rope. He bent really nice while he was trotting, so I clicked and fed. So just be careful that you're not putting a ton of pressure on your horse, and then if they're having trouble going forward, you can use a target or a reverse round pen, which I will show later on. So there's many different ways to get to your destination. Kind of depends on your horse and what you're comfortable with. So now I've moved on to using the lunge whip to desensitize him while he is lunging. So I clicked him there. So I started off by asking him to go forward. He didn't want to go forward, so I'm just going to tap on his rear end on his hindquarters. And I didn't increase the pressure. I'm just tapping and waiting for him. That's all I'm doing. No whipping, no smacking, no scary noises, just tapping. And then once he walked forward and had the rope or the lash over his back, then I clicked for that. So the forward movement with relaxation with the lash over his back. That's what I was clicking for. And again, you might have to break this down a bit more than I did here, because Atlas already knows about lunging. He already knows about the lunge whip. And then I'm just putting them together. So you might have to just raise the whip while he's walking and click for that, for the relaxation, for him going forward, relaxed while the whip is up. You might have to do that first. And I try to start on the withers. There he kind of anticipated stopping a little bit. he's excited for his treat. But I want that versus I put the whip on and he runs off, because I just want him to see something moving while he's moving, and they're just different versus when they're standing still. So I want him to see that lash moving around. I want him to see the whip approach and kind of deal with all that and kind of see how he's going to be with seeing two things out of his eyes. So I'm not just in that right eye. My lash is going to be also in the left eye. So again, here I'm just going to tap kind of on his side. I'm not going to increase the pressure. I'm just going to tap till he goes forward, and then I'm going to release. So I do like to do some negative reinforcement, obviously. But I don't want to escalate it too much, because especially with him, nothing good's happening from that. You're just scaring him. So I'm just tapping. I'm going to stay tapping until he goes forward. So that's all the negative reinforcement I'm going to use with him here. So, and he went forward and he had the lash over his back. And so I'm going to click for forward movement with the lash over his back and move on. So he didn't necessarily understand it that great with the longer lash, so I'm going to back up a step here and use my driving whip and desensitize him to this. So the driving whip has a shorter lash, so I feel like he's going to do better with it, and there's just kind of less moving around, less movement. So initially I started with the lunge whip because it was longer and he would be a bit further away from me, so I'm going to send him off here a little bit. And that's why I started with that, but I think he was just a bit confused and overwhelmed. So I'm going to just go back, and you can tell here he's moving out a lot nicer here. So I clicked him for that. He did that little quarter of a circle with the driving whip up over his withers, and he was totally fine. So probably should have started there, but I kind of thought he would need a bit more space. And he was better with the lunge whip than he was. But, a good thing I did there was noticing that he didn't really want to move forward before he has like a blow up and gets scared, is be like, okay, well, he's not doing super great with this. Let's end on a good note, and then let's just go back a step. So that worked out pretty well for him here. And you can tell he does the same thing this way. He's much more relaxed. He's not stopping. He's not as concerned about it as much. So I'm going to see if he's going to trot. So this was the one thing that I probably shouldn't have done yet. And he handles it decently. And again, I'm just tapping until he goes forward there, and I immediately stop tapping. So he went into the trot, and I clicked there and did a bit of desensitizing, and I'll feed him. But I probably should have stayed at the walk and desensitized him all over his body to this driving whip before I decided, hey, let's trot. And he did okay, but I think he would have definitely done better if I would have had him desensitized to the lunge whip, like on his neck, on his hindquarters, on his legs, before moving him into the trot. So, but he did well. He's going into it, and he it was pretty good. So he did that about quarter of a circle again with the whip on his withers. I'm just going to back him out of my space, and he was pretty relaxed about that. So I'm asking him to go forward with the whip tap on his hindquarters, and then bringing it back to his withers while he moves around. And then I'm clicking for that. I'm clicking for the driving whip on his withers as he moves on the circle. So like right here, it's on his withers again. That's where it starts out. And then I'll ask with my voice cue to trot and with my hand cue. And then if he doesn't, then I just kind of tap him on the hip like I am here. And I'm just going to keep tapping until he goes forward. And he thought about it. And then as soon as he goes forward, I let go. So I'm not going to get bigger. I'm not going to start, smacking him with the end of the lash. I'm not going to smack the ground. I'm not going to make any whooshing sounds. It's just tapping on the hindquarters. So I like to do a little bit of that just because the horses need to know about pressure. But I have to be careful with that because you don't want it to become a poison cue either. So if the horse is confused, if they're worried about that and they're super just not great with the pressure, I would definitely slow that down a bit and get them understanding what the pressure is before you get real big with it. I would just lightly tap and then kind of use a target to lure that and get him to follow it versus just tapping and that's just going to scare the horse. So just make sure you're not overdoing it. But he's pretty relaxed here. Again, I'd probably start using the target there. That was borderline too much tapping there, but he's not horribly worried. He's looking pretty good, but I'd probably go ahead and use a target for that instead of as much tapping as I did. But overall, pretty decent.